Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lesson and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Radio and Revolution.radio. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lesson, and my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lesson, is on his way. He had a flat tire on his bike, and he's stuck in the rain, but he's getting rescued. Our producer is Thomas Becker, and we have a panel tonight with Kevin Trimmel, Anthony Zender, and KJ Scoops. And we're going to be talking about the secret space program. So, brief intros because there's a lot. I have everything up on aquarianradio.com, and I would like you to. I hear some background noise, so if everybody could mute when you're not speaking, that would be great. That'll minimize noise. We are having torrential downpours here in Maui, so my apologies, but it's been raining for 2 weeks. So sick of rain. Anyway, everybody else has snow and everything else. I'm faring better than the average, but still, it's who will stop the rain? Okay, so let me say a little bit about our 3 guests. Kevin Trimmel is 29. He lives in Ontario, Canada, and his pretty cool event that really activated him happened on November 12th. 2008 when he was bicycling in a forest. Matt, I'm getting some background noise. Is that coming from you? Who's that coming from? You there, Matt?
Just you.
Oh, it's me. I'm making the noise. Okay, not sure what that's about, but we'll power.
It's not showing anybody else lighting up, so.
Oh, so nobody else is here?
Oh yeah. You got Anthony and KJ, and I'm having trouble with Kevin.
Keep trying to get him on. And I'll tell you when Sasha walks in the door, but he's gonna have to dry off. It's literally torrential downpours. He got stuck in it. Okay, so I'll talk about Kevin and then KJ, Scoops, and then Anthony Zender, panelist.
But Kevin's gone offline at the moment.
Oh, okay. Let me see what's going on. Okay. Okay, he's showing online over here. Not really online. Kevin. I'll have to try. And I'm doing everything. Okay. I'll get back to you. So, Kevin Trimmel is 29 years old. He was taking a walk. He was bicycling and close to where he lived. He stopped for a break and he got a cloud that passed over him and he was blocking out the sun. This was November 12th of 2008. And he was shocked when he looked up and he saw a grayish-white triangle-shaped craft, like a typical TR. This one was grayish-white and it was black. It was hovering only a few hundred feet above the treetops, and he was walking at a walking pace, and it followed for several minutes. While he followed for several minutes as he continued staring up, and that's how slow the craft was moving. And then when he reached the end of the trail, when the forest opened up into the field, the craft began to melt up into the air. And 3 weeks later, it started to call traumatic memories in the life involving one later find out in the space program, and the March 2015. Anyway, he had a regression to find out that he was having abduction experiences. Now to KJ Scoops, and I'm getting some background noise. If you could please mute when you're not on or not speaking, and then turn it on when you speak. That'll help us with a lot of noise here today. We've got torrential rains, all kinds of excitement going on. So KJ Scoops from the United States is a mother, a solution-based multi-dimensional healer, an empath, secret space program, ultra experiencer for the remote Earth. And I'm hearing a lot of background noise. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm hearing it. She naturally born with untrained psychic awareness and underwent years of studying and mentoring. Matt Painter, are you experiencing that horrendous feedback, or is that just me?
No, it's the studio. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to get a hold of somebody.
Okay. Alrighty. Let me keep talking. KJ has the ability to track timelines. She can heal them and resolve bleed-over problems in their physical and other unseen places. Her passion is healing people with her abilities, and children, adults, targeted individuals, animals, and helps to find missing objects. And then Zender, I'm a panelist. He was born in the city of West Palm Beach in Florida, and as he requested for meeting others, took him into a military career in the United States before honorable discharge from the Marines, and he then began his awakening process like masonry.
Janet, let me hang up this call and start it all over.
Yeah, that might be good, because I don't know if anybody can hear me.
All right. I'll call you back in just a minute.
Call us back.
It's all okay. It's all okay.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see if we can get Janet and them back on. It sounds a lot better now. Of course, you might hear a little echo. You there?
Hi. I'm here.
Antonio's backing, and so is Casey.
Okay. And we still have Kevin missing in action. And I just got an update. Sasha, my driver wants me to call Sasha, and I'm going to do a show. I'll tell him but the river's too high. We have a river that crosses our stream, so he can't get across the river. Okay. So let me finish this intro. I'm not sure what everybody heard, but we'll cover all this. I did a little bio of Casey, and I'm talking about Anthony and Anthony Zender. So anyway, Anthony joined the U.S. Marine Corps, and then he had honorable discharge, and then he went through an enlightenment process through Freemasonry, and the teachings of the Illuminati. I'd like to hear about that. That's exciting. During his awakening, he found that there was much more going on in his life than there seemed, and he found that he was a lab military abductee who was an asset in what is soon to be known to the public, and people are finding out more every day, as the secret space program. And he has a new book, which is called Son of the Morning. You've got to get a copy of that. So, I think what we'll do to start, because we have two missing, but we'll start, the show must go on. And let's begin by talking to, who do I want to start with? Ladies first. KJ, please come on. And for about 10, 15 minutes, tell us your story. It's not going to be the whole story, but
hey, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, the three of us, when we get together, we commonly have interference with when we record anything. So we're used to this, but my name's KJ. I wouldn't really know where to begin with my story, but I didn't really have a big awakening until I started looking into why things were happening to myself. All through life, I've kind of always had things happen. So many that I wouldn't know where to begin at this point, but I guess I could start with in 2010 and 11, I started noticing a lot of shorting out light bulbs and electricity. So I thought it was me doing it, but I kept, explaining to people this was happening, and they're like, no, it's just electronics, it's electrical issues. So I've always seen like visuals of ghosts, or in my room, things in my peripheral, lots of memories as a child of things that I had a hard time processing myself, if it was that a dream or did it really happen, because I feel like it really happened. And it wasn't until I just thought that maybe every person was like this, but it wasn't until later on when I started noticing more things happen, and strange things, where I started to, it was actually, I'm older than Kevin and Anthony. So, well, I don't know how old Anthony is, but I was around before the internet. So we didn't. I'm 41, so we didn't have the internet when I started waking up to stuff. Yeah, so we would experiment with all kinds of stuff. Ouija board, all that stuff. But I kind of just gravitated towards other people that would listen to me. And I have a lot of memories of seeing ships and being on ships as a child. And I have a lot of remote viewing memories of being used to remote view as a child, where I would see situations that were unpleasant. I have memories of kind of what they call militarized remote viewing, where you're connected to somebody on the ground. So I would overlook overhead and see actually children being taken and stuff. But but as a child, like I thought it was a dream, but it was so real. It bothered me. I would contemplate it for, I think I was like 9 years old is what I remember. And I would remember sitting there thinking about it all day long, like thinking this actually happened. How did this happen? So yeah, it's strange how to explain how it looks, but it looks like you're looking down on the scene. So these are things that instances growing up, but it wasn't until like later on, 2012, around their time, where things started really happening. And I was in a time in my life where I was very angry, and I was in a hardcore band at one time. So I had a lot of anger. So anger, and everybody knows in the programs, they trigger your abilities more when you're angry. And so I started like blowing light bulbs, and I couldn't keep a phone very long. It would short out and stuff. So, and then I started having physical attacks that were invisible. I had extreme astral experiences overlooking different things that I could get into at another time. But
right.
and yeah, so I got connected through people just by doing research, and then I found people that I recognized, and so I approached them, and I got connected with other remote viewers and I learned about how, I'm not just the only person that does. I've always been interested in things like the SLI effect, or street light interference, the ability to short out street lights. People call them sliders. That was kind
of called sliders.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I started learning about like how people are, and then I started learning about how, remember that Toyota incident where all these cars were like crashing into things, and Toyota had released a statement to the public that it was electromagnetic frequency.
Electromagnetic. Uh-huh.
They were theorizing that was it, but they didn't want to say it because it was pseudoscience. But they did release it in a press conference saying they can't confirm it, and that like blew my mind because I was like, wait a minute, this is the SLI effect. This is emitting energy off your body and making stuff happen like by accident, or maybe not by accident. Later on, I found out more about like the MK Ultra programs. That memories start triggering fast, and you start recognizing other people. So it's a very long story, but basically, I kind of came into the community through the shadow aspect, not the more loving spiritual side. So I kind of dug straight into the rabbit hole and was like mesmerized. And I started, listening to what everybody had experienced. And I noticed I remembered, wait a minute, I had that experience too. And then, when I first started learning about more the term secret space program wasn't kind of around until later on when people started digging deeper and deeper and finding out there's a lot off planet and on planet. So I have 2 children. I do work a full-time job, and my children's father is also in programs as well. So you can imagine, like, life is never boring. But I had learned over the years how to kind of recognize attacks and remote attacks, and I had children, and then they were getting attacked. So I kind of just had to figure it out. So I did become a healer at a certain point. It was more for not I didn't become a healer necessarily on purpose. I didn't know I was going to be a healer. I kind of did it to help my kids and help myself, and then I realized that I could help other people as well, and I could tap into my abilities because in the secret space program and in the MK Ultra program, this is where they train you for a lot of stuff. I was used for my psionic abilities and my tracking abilities. So, with that being said, I've also experienced a lot of mind wipes, blank slating done to me too. So I've had to track. And then once I really learned how to tap into my abilities, it's been much easier. But at the same time, the more you tap into your abilities, the more you're kind of seen by, the covert technology and all these, there's things you hear about. It's, you get targeted. And so I help targeted individuals, and, and I also have to help myself too. So I have to do a lot of self-healing. But yes, I do. When I met Kevin, I recognized faces right away. But then I kind of just have to figure out how do I know them. And it's usually not a past life that I recognize them from. It's from like being on a mission in the secret space program. So, which happens a lot more. I get a lot more of those bleed overs. So I recognize Kevin from being on a mission with him. That got triggered by his interview when he talked about what he had seen. It triggered the memory that I had, which was a piece of his story. So, and I know Anthony from a completely different time in the secret space program. I've been in many terms, and so can you still hear me?
We've lost Janet, and I'm trying to get her back. Casey, can you tell us the first time you experienced this? What you felt?
It's KJ, actually. Which time? What do you mean? The first time I experienced
when you realized that you were involved in this kind of program?
Yeah. Well, you're always wondering, am I involved? Because you don't really think you are. You don't want to believe it, but then you're fascinated by the topics and you can't stop learning about it because it resonates so much. So, I would say I had a pretty good idea that it was true, but not many people have physical evidence. And then in 2012, I had met the person who was my children's dad, and he had some equipment, some scanning equipment, and he scanned my body, like, my head and my arms, and they're the Zap checkers. I highly recommend if you can find a Zap checker, but I don't think they make them anymore. So if you can find one, get one, because they're really hard to find, but they're like the best scanners for implants in your body, for cybernetic implants. So I scanned my body and I was finding so many and it has a screen that you can read out, and I forget the actual numbers, but for like my head, for example, the one which would be like my pineal, it was like the needle was like flying off the thing, and you could see that it was transmitting, and some of them aren't transmitting, but you can find them. And I had them in all pinpoints in my body, and a whole bunch in my skull, and then my elbows, wrists, hands, legs, knees. And that was like the big telltale moment for myself, because it kind of, a lot of people are like, oh, nobody has any implants. I'm like, oh, I found like 21, on my first scan. So yeah, that was a moment. I kind of sat there for a second, and then I cried. I had a good cry for a good 5 minutes. And it was just like this, okay, it's true. Like I'm pretty resilient. I accepted it. I'm like, okay, now it's real. Now what do I do now? So that was the moment I knew it was true. And then like a lot of things started happening, because the more you become aware, the more even more things, come into your awareness. So it
was more of a gradual acknowledgement then?
I think it's when you're experiencing a lot of supernatural things and memories, and you get triggered by certain movies and scenes, like you go through like the roller coaster of emotion, where like the first time you think about it, you're like, oh, it's just something that resonates, and you follow your interests, and then and then you learn, well, maybe I feel like I might be a part of this, but you don't have the physical evidence, and the physical evidence is kind of what everybody looks for at first, because there is like a factor that's kind of hard to believe. It's kind of unbelievable, you're like, this can't be, because we're so conditioned and brainwashed as a society to believe that this is all nonsense, and a lot of people have been put away for these ideas. So you kind of learn after telling a few people your opinions, and everybody's been told, oh, that's crazy, you're nuts. And I think we've all experienced this, but all of us that are into this topic. So
right about 20 years ago, they call you a nut if you said you'd seen a UFO, let alone anything else, and now it's more accepted to say it.
Exactly. So good for people. I think it's great if they can grow up in a family where that's open. I think that's wonderful. I grew up open. My children are growing up open to anything that they want to talk about. They tell me things about the moon that I know they've never seen anywhere, like on a movie or TV. So I listen, but you learn pretty quick who you can talk to about it and who you can't. And, the more and I got to give the internet credit, because before, once the internet started up, and I age myself when I say that. I'm really not that old, but
I'm gonna try getting Janet back with her phone and see what happens.
Yeah.
They're having quite a bit of storms there at the moment. I think she might have answered.
I'm here. I picked it up
took
on
me
my
a minute
phone. I didn't know how that would work. Is it working okay?
Yeah, she come through great. I mean, I was brain dead, so I didn't think about calling your phone.
Well, it's my Skype. I turned my phone back on. And I go, I was just trying to reach you. Like, call me on the Skype on my phone. Yeah, my internet is down for the computer. It just we've had so many storms.
Well, and, I had KJ tell us about her, when she first realized that she was involved in this program, and she explained it out pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. I'll have to go listen to it later to get the story. But, okay, so let's pass we have a little invisible talking stick that we pass around. Let's pass it to, Kevin, do you want to go next? Or do you want to give it to, what's his name? Anthony. Yeah, Anthony.
I'll give it to Anthony.
You there, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm here. I just wanted to say something quick, something KJ said.
Sure.
She made such a good point. When you first realize, when it all kind of sinks in, that you realize that you're a part of this program, she said that she started to cry, and that's something I haven't really talked about before. But on that first day when I walked under the TR3 for 5 minutes, and then that's when I got picked up and dropped back off, and I was in shock afterwards. But when I finally made it home that night, I just started crying uncontrollably. Like, just that night, it all just came like rushing back. But it was this emotional bleed through that happened. It was just this heavy emotional feeling that you couldn't help but cry. And I didn't even understand why I was crying, because typically when you see a UFO, if it's just a UFO sighting, your response isn't to cry. If you just see a UFO. This was different. This was, you walk under, I was walking underneath this thing for 5 minutes. Then I went into shock. Then later that night, I made it home, and then I just got hit with this like wall of emotion, and I didn't understand why I was crying like the whole night, because again, that's not a normal response from seeing a UFO, and also too, it's not like I thought it was alien, so it wasn't like scary in that way. I knew it was government. I knew it was just a top secret crap I had witnessed, and to come home and cry like that it's not typically what would happen. So I just thought that was interesting that KJ mentioned that, like, when the bleed through started to happen, and it all kind of sinks in that you're a part of this program and it's real, that crying is actually a very normal response. So I just thought that was interesting that she mentioned that. But
and I just wondered when you were talking, I just began to wonder. I wonder how many regular UFO experiencers are actually experiencers in the secret space program, because I'm much older than you. I could be your mother or maybe even grandmother. I'm 64, right? And I was like this first generation. I've been at the underground base at Johnson Atoll. So we didn't know how to assemble all this. That's apparently where the Serpo Gray Ebens were. They had many species there, and I was engaged with them because they called me the key. So we have our rules, I guess we have. But I don't want to go diverted to me right now, because let's keep the spotlight on you guys. But I think this is something that we can talk about for many, many shows. We're only going to get to a part of it, but go ahead and tell us a little about your story. This is a separate entity, a show on itself. I don't know how many people have listened to the previous ones. So let's just start, with some background as we build this series and connect the dots, okay?
Why don't you go ahead, Anthony, and kind of explain who you are and your background?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me on the show. Thank you. My timeline is, because everybody has their timeline about how they have come to understand how they are involved. in this program. And pretty much when I was a younger child, my grandfather, he was that's where it really began. He was an engineer, and he worked on a lot of projects like laser systems and propulsion systems, and a lot of things he couldn't talk about to his family. And like you said before, Janet, it is a generational thing, because I'm a generation 4, so my mom before me would be generation 3, and so that's how that works. But it began with my grandfather, and he was working on things he couldn't talk about. But as a young child, I can still go back to those memories, and I'm very lucid. And I remember seeing some of the things that he was working on. He would always be listening to, Art Bell and things like that, about aliens and all that, but he could never talk about it. And at 6 years old, I didn't know what was going on, but pretty much in the Super Soldier timeline, that's when you find out. That's when you first get taken, is as a child. And it's, around 2, 4, or 6. But at the time, I didn't know. But I remember, looking back now, I remember having a dream about a hand taking me out the window. And later on, I got that confirmed that I was actually at that time taken to a deep underground base in Texas, where they began the process of the grooming of putting in the implants, of putting in injecting the predatory pathological artificial intelligence, and all that when I was 6. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's when they started. And periodically, through my younger years, I would be getting bloody noses at night, and I would always think it was, I would always be thinking it was just a heat flash or something like that. But later on, I found out that periodically they would take you to do adjustments or whatever they needed to do to what they were putting in you to make you into a super soldier. And wow. I found out that was happening to me through my younger years, up until I was 16. And because my whole life I've always been extremely talented. When I was younger, I was like the lead in the school play. I was a state champion in wrestling. I never got beat. I went into the Marines, and when I entered into the Marines, I actually, in boot camp, I graduated at the top of my class, and I was just always like the best. And I'm a professional fighter now, and so I've continued just that mentality. And so basically, I found out that was basically through genetics and my starseed genetics. And at 16 years old,
you're saying you said that like all these abilities because of your starseed genetics, or was it because they were enhancing you, or did they just select you because you're a starseed? I kind of explained a little bit better, and I do have to say to everybody, I'm getting fit for a hearing aid after that flu went by at the UFO Congress. I caught that, almost died, but my side effect is I've lost like half my hearing. So you have to kind of slow down a little bit to be able to, I'm hearing pretty well, but if I stop you, say it again, it's not you, it's me. I just want to make sure I catch this because I really want to, understand, I want to grasp what you're saying. So go ahead. When I was asking, explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, that's the criteria for the program is, the star seeds, and because they are identified to have the metaphysical abilities, telepathy, telekinesis, the 3 T's, teleportation, all that stuff. And pretty much star seeds came in at a certain time, which I came in at 1985, which that was a prime year for star seeds coming in. Star seed indigos, rainbows, crystals, all those are actually real, souls that are coming in, and I'm indigo. I'm of that nature. But basically at 16 years old, I was then approached by the military, And this is the part where it's the Men in Black type scenario where these secret governments have the ability to erase memories, and so when they're taking you to the bases, as a child and all this, they're erasing your memories, but it's still retained in your soul, because the soul is the recorder of your experience. And if you're a lucid dreamer or very psychic, you can remember these memories because they're in your soul, and they can wipe your mind, but not your soul. And so I can remember a lot that's happened to me. But basically at 16, that's when the Department of Naval Intelligence, which is a secret department, which is based off of Operation Paperclip from the Nazis coming over in World War II. That department is called the Department of Naval Intelligence, and that department deals with all the black operations. And there are many different industries, corporations in the black operations. All the like the ICC, Kruger, Monarch. These are all corporations that deal with advanced technology, cloning, advanced ships, just anything you can think of. And basically, the Department of Naval Intelligence approached me at 16 years old, and that's when they got me to sign the contract for 16-year Black Operations tour in the secret space program.
Wow. So you actually, a lot of these people I've interviewed were kind of just taken against their will, but you actually had a contract that you signed. The other secret space program person I know is one of my co-hosts, Teresa J. Morris, and she was approached when she was 15, and she had to sign she agreed to sign a contract at 15, and her parents approved. She had to get parental approval. They approved. So you're saying it's because you're an indigo, but I think it goes back further, because I actually had you're saying it goes back many generations, but one of Cynthia Crawford, her father, who probably was born in the 20s, was doing the genetic manipulation, and he was a clone and a hybrid, and then she was a hybrid. Well, she just died last year. So I'm trying to piece this together. This whole thing kind of triggers me. All these memories start coming back, so I'm here facilitating this process, so bear with me. I'm sorry, but and I think what I was going to ask. Continue.
Because, okay. I mean, well, that's what it's all about. Is it's all about remembering. So and that's the thing is about in this program, the military abduction program, about only 5% actually remember what happened to them. The other 95% don't even know what happened to them. So that's another thing. But the 5% that do, they regain the memories back, and they go on that quest of obviously taking the red pill and open up Pandora's box to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. And so basically, when I was 16 is when I started my Black Operations career, and I was for Monarch in the beginning. For Monarch is a corporation that deals with time travel, cloning, eugenics, all of that, and they are basically the ones that are they're abducting people and taking people's eggs from them, taking people's DNA. And they're the ones responsible for the cattle mutilations, and they can be known that they are the black triangles. That everybody, the TR3s, they are that. And there's a special group called Strike Group 160 that goes around, and the operation that is actually involved for when they abduct people is called Operation Green Star. And that operation is when a secret government poses as an extraterrestrial threat, but really it's a secret government and they abduct people, and that's Operation Green Star. And so that's what they're doing to people in the secret space program. And yeah, they're basically
So they're
carrying out.
Are they all humans that are doing this, or is this a variety of different beings?
It's definitely it's they're humans, but there's obviously other influences behind it. So but the fact of the matter is and in the beginning, I was doing missions for Monarch. I did 1,328 that I found out from Monarch, but I actually made a switch over. And I actually remember the missions where I didn't because I was an assassin for Monarch, and I was involved in killing, and but I actually am not anymore. I'm involved in rescuing, and I can get into the last recall that I remember, but I am actually doing good things for the greater good, because that's the group that I'm involved in. Kruger is involved with other secret societies like the or like the White Dragon Society, who are all involved with the Galactic Federation in bringing down the Cabal and bringing about the real New World Order.
So you said the white triangle. What did you call that again? Say that again.
The White Dragon Society. It's an Asian.
White Dragon Society.
Yeah, it's an Asian family. They're a very wealthy family. They're the secret societies. They all hold the technology. If you look at the 9 veils, it's all about piercing the 9 veils. And once you get to about veil 4, you realize that there's secret societies that are behind everything, that have the technology to do interstellar travel and all this stuff. So you have to pierce the veils if you and most people don't. They come to the world and don't pierce any veils.
Right. So so the White Dragon, are they the Chinese, or you're just saying they're Asian? And then the Red Dragon.
Yeah, they're an Asian secret society, but they're involved. Benjamin Fulford, they are involved in bringing down the Cabal. Like, that is what is happening right now.
Okay.
If you look,
so then
I mean, like right now, that is exactly what's happening. And you can QAnon. There's a map that came out, a cartography map of the whole entire conspiracy, and it connects every single point in the conspiracy for people to see that there's actually something being done behind the scenes right now.
Okay.
and that's actually
that's the ANON. Is that a website?
Yes.
This is the 3rd time this has come at me in 2 days, so I always know that's where I'm supposed to go.
It's the QAnon map, and you can type that in, but it's a cartography map at very high intelligence. It's very, very high intelligence, like way above top secret. There's 38 levels of clearance classification, and this one, this is so far up there that no one would believe it. That's how far up there it is. But if you can connect the dots and look at it, you'll see that it's the conspiracy unraveled, and then you'll see that there's a force behind it that was obviously able to unravel this, and that's how we know that this is happening. The Cabal's going down, and it's.
So let's define that. Let's, as they use on the news, let's unpack that. Who are the Cabal? Because that's just thrown around, the Illuminati, the Cabal.
Okay, I'll just say right now, Hillary, Bill, George Bush, those people, they are the Cabal, and they are reptilians. They're at the top of the pyramid. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen them in their true form. So I'll say that as well, because I've actually done escort missions for them when I was in Monarch. And I remember the memories of actually being in the back of a Suburban with Bill and Hillary and escorting them to different parties. And I remember seeing them shapeshift.
Was Reagan one of them?
And Reagan's good. Reagan was doing the right thing. He was with Kennedy and everyone else, and that's why he almost got assassinated.
Yeah, because the assassin that I knew, and he's now deceased, worked for Reagan, and so he did like 135 kills. You know, he thought he was a good person. You know,
That's not a good person. I mean, it's killing is not the way to peace.
Not a good thing. But he said it was people like, you know, they got identified that this person would, you know, do something horrendous for, you know, I don't know. I don't know how they decided, but Reagan apparently talked to him every night because Tom Morris was part of the previous generation, and he was in area, or wherever it was, Arizona, wherever that was, where the Roswell craft was. And so this, I've been in the middle of life and interviewing these people for years and getting this story, so this is really fascinating. But so it would be great. Is there a okay, you're saying read this map. It looks doesn't really look like much that I pulled up. So I will have to go. Who was that? Was Bill Cooper?
I'm actually writing a book right now. I'm working on my second book that's actually involved with every single point in that map and connecting it. I'm writing a book about every single point that you see on that map. I'm connecting it all because it's all connected, and that shows it. And then once you're able to see it, you see everything. Because before I received that map, I actually received a dream before, and it was of Donald Trump, and it was I was on stage with Donald Trump, and he gave me a piece of paper that had gum on it, and he was removing the gum. Okay, he was removing the gum, and then he told me to take the stage. And then one of my mentors, who his name Ramtha is Ramtha the Enlightened One. He's been a very, very prominent mentor in my life. He came in my dream afterwards, and pretty much told me to focus. And then that map came into my my world the next day.
So you're talking about J.C. Knight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I was just at her Yelm. I was at her place when we were flown over to do the Yelm UFO conference last.
That's awesome. That's Ramtha is I can talk about Ramtha for a long time and the influence that he's had on me, and it's very important too, because he's actually involved with backing Trump. Because when Trump actually, you can see it on the when back in December on Fox News, there were 2 UFOs that were photographed with Trump's airplane, and that's when Trump actually saw the technology, and then he knew, and then that's when he started getting brought in to the secret space program and what's going on. The things that Hillary and Bill and all them have been hiding, all the trillions of dollars have gone into this, and he knows about it now. And now he's going to be bringing it back to the people, and that's what he was talking about. And in his inauguration speech, when he was talking about bringing it back to the people, because he knows what it's been all about.
Well, I have to just put it out there, and we're all here adults. We can talk about it, but I do not like the man. So I'll just say that. So there's lots of time.
No, I'm not saying he's a good or bad man. I'm just saying he's the man. Because if Hillary would have won, we would be in a war with Russia. We'd be in a different timeline. But he was the one to not be seduced by the cabal's influence, to be able to break this and allow us to.
My hypothesis, my theory, my whatever I'm getting is that he's part of it. That anybody has over $1 billion is all part of it. They're all the good old boys club. And they all, they have their little fronts that they put out to the world, but behind the scenes, they're all in bed together. And that's what I'm getting. So, my friend is George Reed, and he said back in the day, they wanted him to become the financial advisor for the next president. And he says, oh, well, who's that? And he said, well, it's Jimmy Carter. And he goes, well, is Jimmy a Democrat? I never heard of him. Is he a Democrat or Republican? And he says, well, it doesn't matter. He's just going to be next president. And, we have everybody. They're all of ours. They all belong to us. So George Green invented the the derivatives that crashed the financial market. And now he's on the way to try to make up for what he did, because all these people that lost their homes and their mortgages, did so because he invented the system that they implemented. So there's a lot of karma going around here. But I just want to caution, and I don't have the answer, but the information that I've been getting throughout the years is that don't trust anybody that has over $1 billion. Just don't trust them. They're all together. And then my husband and I are Anunnaki researchers, so I'm interested in going back through this timeline. Like, where are the Anunnaki? We have all this information that some left. I think it's Marduk right now is the head of that pyramid.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to chime in for 1 second there.
Go ahead. Next person. Go ahead.
About the Anunnaki. Like, for a long time, the Rothschild family, they were the ones that were at the top of the pyramid, and they kind of like controlled the inner circle families, and that it was like that right up until recently. But like around 2012, this civil war started within the inner circle, and that's where you have like all these different ICC groups fighting amongst each other. So like Kruger is one of the ICC groups, and they kind of bought their way into power temporarily. And the Rothschild-Rothkopf family, they're really good at doing strategic retreats. So they'll allow an inner circle family to temporarily take power, and they will kind of retreat to the shadows for a little bit. And then that way people kind of let down their guard because they think, okay, like now we have a different faction in power, things are going to change. But what will happen is once Trump is like out of office, then they'll just put someone back in power that is actually a part of the Rothschild family. Now, hopefully, we have a window of time where hopefully we can steer the timeline so that history doesn't repeat itself, and we don't have like the Rothschiilds back in power, because they are the mid-level managers of planet Earth, and they were put in power by Amun-Ra Marduk. So you're absolutely right about that. But there's this civil war going on because there's so many different factions and there's so many different programs running out there that they've become so powerful in terms of technology, doing trade with various ET species, that they actually have the power to take on the Rothschilds for the very first time. So there's this massive civil war going on. So I just wanted to mention that it's very messy and complicated right now. Even 20, 30 years ago, it was a little simpler in terms of like one family, one group. You're right. They're all in bed together. They were all in. It was just like one group kind of controlling everything. Not counting the Fourth Reich, of course, but they're more off planet. But anyway, the point is now all these different ICC groups are actually starting to fight with each other, and they're actually losing containment because of this civil war. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, in 2012, that was actually the return of the gods, and there were two factions. And they came in, and Marduk was here, and Nanar, Anu stepped down from Nibiru, and he gave command of Nibiru, or he gave Nibiru's kingship to Nanar. So Nanar came back, and he's challenging Marduk. And I'm talking to a fractal of Marduk right now. I've been talking to him for about a year, and I won't mention his name. I think he's going bonkers. And I just got wind that he's trying to, he's the one behind. He wants to raise Lemuria and Atlantis again. So he's going to, his agenda is to launch some kind of war and the nukes so that it reverses and goes back to what it was before. I hope that's not true, but if this gets very perverse when you start getting all the stories behind the stories, but I just wanted to caution, be careful who you trust and you put on, you assign them a white hat, because they're not. They're not. This game is so perverted. Anyway, we're going a little off track here, but I think we need to go back and get the little piece of the puzzle that you guys have, which is so freaking awesome.
When we come back,
ahead.
there's something KJ. She knows something really profound about all three of us. Something called the 1979 gamma ray incident, and I think when we come back, we should give her a chance to talk about that, because that's a recall where. Go ahead.
Go ahead. We got about a minute before the break. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, they have looking glass technology. They kind of knew this was going to be going on right now. This is why there's so many programs in place. So they created programs like Project Oak Tree, where they knew all these spirits were going to be coming into the planet, and they had to find out who was who, and basically it's all based on who you are genetically, soul-wise, what your potential is. You steer the potential timelines that are coming from the future, and they groom you from, this is what Hollywood is about, and all these MK Ultra projects and etc. It's like a steamroll of, because they know what's coming. So now it seems very confusing, and the history is just jumbled up because it keeps changing and timeline insertion with the time travel. So it is very confusing. It's like a web of information, and you really kind of need to know who you are as yourself first.
Yes, and that's a great time to break here. We'll be back, KJ and everybody. Listening to what is Sacred Matrix, Scene 5, Sacred Matrix.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, "You can't handle the truth." Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Vrichjan, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitor's peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Well, that didn't work. I'm going to have to get this all set back up again. Boy, this can be fun sometimes. I think Janet has joined us back.
I'm here. Are we live?
Yes, we are.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Let me do our little welcome back. 1 second here.
We had a little glitch. Sorry.
What's happened?
I said we had a little glitch. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Glitches are us, yeah. Okay, so we're back. I'm Janet Carelesson. This is the Sacred Matrix. And my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, will not be joining us, it looks like, but he may come in last minute. Our producer is Thomas Becker. We're here on a panel with Kevin Trimmel, Anthony Zender, and KJ Scoops. But before we go back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and donate what you can. $5, $15, $20, $100, $1 million, whatever you can donate is greatly appreciated. It helps us stay in the air. Mad Painter, do you have our stats? Where are we and what do we need to bring in this month?
Yes, ma'am. We got 787 and we need 2650. And we have a special going. If you send in $50, Nighthawk will send you a Don't Tread on Me flag, 3x5. I believe it is.
Oh, wonderful.
And right now, if you need to get your seed packs if you want to get planted in this spring, 35,500 seeds, 56 varieties for $100.
Oh, yeah. We should tell Laura Eisenhower she's going out to learn how to do all this farming right now. She's going to a workshop, so she probably would really appreciate that. I'll have to send her a message. All right, so when we left at our commercial break, we're going to pass the baton back to Kevin, who's going to segue into KJ, and then we will pass it to Anthony. And that may just about eat up the last hour. But go on ahead, Kevin, and say what you were going to say. We're all ears.
Sure. Thanks, Janet. This kind of just goes back a little bit to what KJ was talking about at the beginning. And that has to do with, when it all starts to sink in and you get the bleed through memories, you can get triggered by other people doing interviews, especially if you have recalls with them. You'll see someone do an interview and you'll recognize that person, and then you'll get triggered in that way. But then also movies, too. Like for me, in November 2008, I was 19 years old, and I actually thought that was the first time I was picked up. And it wasn't until I met KJ that she actually remembers me from a mission when I was 8 years old. Now, I still don't have any recall of that SSP term from when I was a child. My memory kicks in when I was 19. But what's interesting, though, is in terms of getting triggered by movies, is in 2009, about 6 or 7 months after I walked under the TR3, that the first remake of the Star Trek movies came out in 2009. J.J. Abrams, he did the new Star Trek movie, and there's that opening scene with the USS Kelvin, and it gets blown to bits. And I just think it's interesting that like most people, when they saw that movie in the movie theater, like they're like, oh my god, like they're thinking in their head like, oh my god, this is so cool, like the graphics are amazing, this is like what a great start to to relaunch the franchise. So everyone was really excited like in the movie theater. But for me, when I was witnessing this ship being blown up, I started vibrating and like freaking out, and I almost felt like I was on a roller coaster. Like I got motion sickness watching the craft like spinning as it was like blowing up, and everyone's like running to the escape pods. And again, that's not like a normal response like in a movie theater when you're watching like the opening scene of a sci-fi, and everyone else in the theater is like super excited because it's like an action-packed, awesome scene, and you're actually having like a little breakdown because you're getting triggered by witnessing a craft, being attacked and blown up. And it's like what KJ said earlier, like, you'll get triggered and you'll just like want to cry, and you don't even understand why this heavy feeling is setting in. But what it is, it's your deep subconscious remembers everything. The blank slating only works on the conscious mind, but your soul or your deep subconscious, it's holding on to this trauma. So when you get triggered, your conscious mind still doesn't quite understand why you're crying or why this you have this impending feeling of doom. And that's classic PTSD. So a lot of people that have been using the program, they'll get triggered from a movie or watching an interview with someone, especially if that is someone they actually did a mission with or served with. So I wanted KJ to talk about
let me say one thing,
sure.
Because you just just sparked the. This is why I'm a hypnotherapist. My sister-in-law has the International Hypnosis Federation, and I said, how do we work with these people that have these memories? She said the same thing. The reason why we can recover these things is just what you said. Even though they put all this stuff in to make us brain wipe, it doesn't work because you can go to the oversoul, to the higher soul, to the eternal being, and you can ask them anything and get it back at any time. So, but that's why the government or the powers that be, or whoever they are, work so hard to put in almost try to hardwire the programming into everybody. But that was the problem they had at Montauk. People just kept waking up. So that's why I think they put the suicide thing in. So you won't wake up, you'll just suicide. But then again, as Penny was saying, that death is not an option. If they want to revive you, they just revive you, right? So, okay. Finish what you were saying, and then we'll pass it to KJ.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out that you can kind of gauge your responses if you've been through been through the program. You can kind of gauge your responses because they're not going to be quite normal, like getting triggered by a sci-fi movie or like seeing a UFO, and you start to cry. It's because it's triggering that memory of being abducted, or it's possible you were actually taken. This is something that's come through in the channeling that Karl Mollison has done, where people, they'll say what really happened during that UFO experience when I was camping and we saw the UFO hovering over the lake. And then when someone does either quantum healing hypnosis or higher self channeling, they'll find out that UFO incident where they thought it was just a sighting, it was actually an abduction that occurred, but they weren't conscious of it. They just remember the craft showing up and then leaving, and the middle part is actually gone. And then but it's still within their deep subconscious. So later, like years and years later, when the blank slating starts to break down, they'll just be watching like a sci-fi movie, like a Star Trek or even like a Star Wars, and all of a sudden they'll get triggered by a scene and they'll literally have a little breakdown. And that, again, that's not like a normal response to watching a sci-fi, especially a sci-fi that's kind of marketed more towards children. It's not like that dark or scary, but if it can trigger that kind of response in someone, it means that there's something much deeper going on there. But anyway, I'd like to pass it to KJ because she has this memory of something called the 1979 gamma ray incident. And we feel this is really important because it involves a satellite that was taken out. And it's interesting that the modern day version of the Solar Warden program was launched in 1980, just after this event. And it appears that, again, like one faction had to fight against another faction in order to launch Solar Warden. So anyway, without giving away anything more, KJ, it's all yours.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, movies too. Yeah, the movie Fire in the Sky has huge triggers for a lot of us. And torture. I can't watch torture movies. When I was younger, like I could, but after I started remembering, I can't watch. It gives me like an adverse body reaction. So I'm highly empathic too. So it's like I kind of actually I can feel the pain from what I see through memories. So yeah, there are a lot of triggers. But okay,
what year was Fire in the Sky made? Is that something to do with 79? I know Travis Walton pretty well.
It's old. I saw it, I think, on HBO, like back in the day. But I saw it, and there's a scene in there where it's like showing inside a ship, and it's just like cages stacked on top of each other with people in them, and that like made me like I had to turn it off. Like it was so it hit me pretty hard because I was like, I've seen that before, but how, where, and how, you get a lot of that. Like, I don't know why I know this, but I do. And,
you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So Travis got abducted in 75.
Yeah.
And it seems that Fire in the Sky, why do they say it was 93? No, wasn't it earlier than that? Maybe it was.
I think the movie came out in 93, but yeah.
So the movie's in 93, but his abduction was in 79. Okay. Yeah, and I've talked to him. He said that was Hollywood. So why was Hollywood taking his story and turning it into this shit stuff? That's a good question, right? Okay, so go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, I think Hollywood has free reign to kind of show us all potential timelines. So you can literally find a movie anywhere, somewhere that has some sort of memory or seems like it's like your life. There's a lot of potential timelines that they try to kind of get into our minds, and that's more confusion, you know. They can further pinpoint who we are by our interests and all that stuff. So they know who we are before we got here. They know we're coming. They knew who our parents are. My mom was generation 2, and my grandfather's generation 1. So anyways, I'll get to this so we don't run out of time. But as Kevin was saying, we did a roundtable in October where we talked about this, and that's kind of the only place where it's talked about at this point. But I knew about an incident that happened in 1979, and I had the memory originally had been vaguely in my mind, but I had the first super soldier person that I had like learned about was Duncan O'Finian, and his story about being in Vietnam had triggered this with the way he described it. I was like, oh my God, like, why does this seem so familiar? So I'll get to this incident. So basically, there's a whole bunch of people that were involved. I would say 22 children that I can see. I don't think there's any more than that, but I've been trying to tap into more about it. All of these people are different ages on this like organic timeline that we're on right now. And I believe this is the timeline that has like a lot of offshoot timeline, a secret space program terms. And it's kind of, I believe everybody needs to stay on the organic timeline. But we were, basically they take you at an early age or up, usually, I've seen it before 1 year old actually, and then up to an adult, they still take people. But these children, basically I was taken out of my timeline at age 9 and sent on to a secret space program term. And all of the other children on this list also at different times were taken wherever they were taken, and they were trained in whatever it is that they were going to do. In this case, it was basically a psionic ability that everybody had training in. And at one point in history, they kind of gathered up all the kids on their terms, and they brought them to San Diego in 1979. And that was done through a jump room technology. And there's a naval base there, Point Loma, which is a submarine naval base. And they loaded, by the way, too, the children always jumped with a guardian. So we all had some sort of guardian, and it's somebody that's like a parent or a family member, or somebody that we know. And they never go alone, and they're in altered states. And they went with us, and it takes about 2 hours, I believe, from San Diego to Australia in a submarine. And they brought everybody there, and it's a place called Exmouth, and that's spelled EXMOUTH, Australia.
EXMOUTH. So wait, you were in a jump room, and then you're in a submarine. How did you get from one to the other? I got confused there.
So all of these children are from the future. So we all were on our own time wherever we were. So I haven't tracked like what times everybody was on their terms, but they took those kids, kind of grabbed them up from their spot, and they all jumped from where they were, and they landed in San Diego in 1979. So this is involving time travel, temporal displacement.
Okay.
And I also had a lot of bloody noses as kids. That's a sign of temporal displacement. So so we went to Exmouth, Australia, and there's a huge facility there. You can look up pictures online. I'm not sure. I assume it's on a large energy pocket on the planet, which would coincide with children's abilities. So they got everybody out of the submarine and gathered hands. And then there was a boy in the middle, and it lasted about 15 minutes, maybe. I mean, it could have been even less. And we basically generated a psionic blast, which destroyed a satellite that was within the Earth's atmosphere, and it was within sight. So everybody on the Earth actually witnessed like a flash, like an explosion, and and so NASA released a statement stating that it was called the 1979 gamma ray incident, which is you can.
Okay.
There's information on it in the Astrophysical Journal in 1980, which I don't have with me right now, but we talk about it in our roundtable. And so everybody wanted to know what it was, so it did make headlines. And they didn't really have a smoking gun. They just sort of said it was an incident. They based it off astrophysics and their observations. But they said it was viewable from spacecraft. And so that was it. That was my memory. And then they...
Was that intentional? Did they intend? Was this some kind of the satellite causing some kind of disturbance or danger for?
The opposite. This
what was
very
the
negative.
Purpose of?
This satellite was here to protect us in some way. And so
okay.
I remember that everybody was wearing black. That's all. And then there was like a patch. We had a patch that kind of signified our group, I guess. But they put us back in the sub when we went back to San Diego. That was it. And it just is kind of like a job. There wasn't any emotion or shaking hands or reunions. It was just in and out. And then back to Point Loma. And then we just went back to wherever we came from in the future. And then at that point, I don't know what happened to everybody, but I came back to this timeline, minutes after I left. So, and that's the case for everybody, however, whatever age group. And I have the list of how old everybody was. But this happened before Kevin was born. So, and it would have, I would have been 2 years old.
It was March 5th of 79, the gamma ray transient. It's on the internet. And it's coming from the normal perspective that it was.
I just want to add something.
Go ahead.
Yeah. My guardian, when KJ was able to remote view the past, my guardian was my great uncle. And if I was 8 years old at the time, that would mean it would have been around, when they grabbed me, it would have been around 97, because I was born in late 88, December of 88, so basically 89. So it would have been, when I was 8, I was 8 years old in 97. And what's interesting is my great uncle, he was alive at that time. And he was in the Navy. He was a communications officer that served in World War II and also in Korea. And it's just interesting that that detail does add up, because he died in the early 2000s, but in 97 he was alive when I was 8, which is key, because think about it, if he wasn't alive when I was 8, then for me it'd be harder to believe that you know what I mean, that he was actually my guardian, but he was alive at that time still. He was actually my great uncle Bill. And anyway, I just thought I'd add that detail, because
it's interesting. That's very interesting, and it ties in with Andrew Basiago. But Andrew's father was conscious, but Andy always went through with several times went through with a guardian, like you're saying, someone that. Yeah. And then that series Fringe shows the professor taking his son, and that's kind of the story that there's
Walter Bishop and Peter, when they go through to the other side there, that's totally based on Andrew Basiago and his father, absolutely. And they always send you when you're under 18 years old with a guardian, usually a family member, but it's usually a family member that even though they are in an altered state and they blank slate everybody, it's usually a family member that also has a certain level of expertise or has been in the program themselves. So for me, the only other person that I feel in my family would have been used in the program was my great uncle Bill, because he was a Freemason and in the Navy as a communications officer during World War II and then Korea as well.
Right.
But anyway, KJ, go on.
Go ahead. My grandfather was also a communications expert in the military. He went to Parris Island, where you hear a lot about the Gen 1 soldiers being kind of brainwashed, and the MK Ultra stuff. My grandfather wouldn't say anything about the war. I asked, but yeah. So where was I? So this is the incident.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to give the list of names because some of them are public super soldiers or experiencers or whatever they call themselves, and some
So
are
this
not.
was the list of 22 children.
Yeah, and I
saying.
can't name all of them because some of them I don't have permission to release their name. And
Right.
and
But
the
how
other
did
one
you get this list?
I tracked it. That's what I do.
Oh, you tracked it.
Yeah,
Wow.
when I was in the programs, I was used as a psionic tracker, and like you know how you're talking about how you're in a lot of places and how do you remember, and it is part of your soul, but it's also your biofeedback that you let off. So if you can imagine, you do many terms. If you're like 20 years old on this timeline, if you add up all the years that you've been gone and back, I mean, there's people that are like hundreds of years old, technically.
Right.
That all carries biofeedback. So it lets off a frequency that you can connect to. This is like when you see like, a simple version of what I'm talking about is like when a psychic tracks a missing person. They can pick up that biofeedback, or like I had to find a cat yesterday. So, I try to kind of use it when I can to, if something's missing too. So you pick up on feedback, biofeedback. So, and I've known about this incident for years actually, but I've been tracking for years. And
so with this is you have permission of some of the 22 people, but we're not going to mention anybody's names that you do not have their permission. So I think it's okay. What do you guys think? Okay for KJ to name the names?
Yeah, well, I
Sure.
talked about it on our roundtable. I listed the names, and some people I haven't talked to, but they're public. So
okay,
that's kind of like I think that would be okay. Okay, so. Sure. And there's actually 3 that I didn't identify, but I know that they're involved, and it's a male or female, so I haven't found them yet. But so the first one, which I talked about, actually is Duncan O'Finian. He was age 14. And I'm just going down my list. Max Spears, he was age 13. James Casbolt, he's age 9. Miranda Kelly is age 10. I have my list in front of me.
Wow.
Anthony Zender, he's 10. Kevin Trimmel, age 8. Myself, age 9. Bill Brockbrader was age 7. Og Tellez was age 8. There's I'm naming the people that are more public. The David Corso was age 12 at this incident. Michael Spindler, who is not too public, but he has been a little public. He was age 5. A person named Iskana, who was age 5. John Bond, who is age 9. There's another person that's male that I can't name. A person named Ghost Stone, who's age 10. And another male who I can't name. Another female who I can't name. One other male and one other female who I can't name. And then we actually identified another person since the last roundtable, which is Michelle. And she just recently became public, so she was one of the females.
Wait, you're fading out. Say that again. Another person, and then you faded out. Say that again, please.
Another woman named Rochelle. What's Rochelle's last name? I'm sorry.
I believe it's Stanforth. She's in Australia. She's based out of Australia, oddly enough. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's my list, and the remaining are unidentified at this point. I do plan on tracking them, but it's been a lot of incidents have happened since we did our last roundtable, so I've been extremely busy dealing with life and remote attacks, covert stuff. So, and
that happens.
So yeah, tracking takes a lot of energy, and it's it can take a while. So I have to really be like in the zone, so to speak, to tap in.
Is there some significance to the number of 22 children? Was there that relevant to have that specific number?
I'm sure there is. They all love numbers. All the societies and the factions. They love. I haven't looked into that, but that's a good question, actually. I'm sure.
Right, and then the location of this X month. I need to pull that up, but that.
Yeah,
is
it has interesting photos. I guess it's a HARP facility, but if you look at Google Images of the place, it's kind of wild. That's all I can say.
Oh, okay.
Take a search of it.
All right. Anything that any of you want to ask KJ before we pass the baton over to who's next? Go ahead. Anthony was next. Okay, go ahead. Anybody have any questions about that incident? Feedback, comments?
I just wanted to mention that the whole point of that satellite being taken out, it was that satellite, for whatever reason, was in the way of them successfully launching the Solar Warden program. And that satellite
so let's go to that.
Yeah, it had to be taken out in order for Solar Warden.
Whose satellite was it? And what was its purpose? Does anybody know that?
I don't know that. I just know that it was a satellite that was protecting people on the planet. I don't know whose satellite it was. That's something we would probably have to remote view in the future, unless you know, KJ.
I don't know exactly who it was. I just know that it was something that had to do with an alliance of some groups or species that were helping us out. And like he said, Solar Warden kind of rolled out into the public shortly after that. And in between that, as we mentioned in our roundtable, was this Phil Schneider incident right after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Dulce firefight. So, yes, so that was in late August of 1979. So what happened was there's a couple things they had to do, Solar Warden, before they could launch. They had to take out this satellite, which appears to be more of an ET-controlled satellite that was actually protecting us. I'm not exactly sure which ETs were involved. But then also, too, they were expanding out the Dulce base, and that's when the testimony of Phil Schneider comes in, where 66 Secret Service agents were killed when they sent them down into that hole. And Phil was wounded. He lost his fingers, and he had he was hit by like a plasma weapon, and his it like opened him up like a fish. So he had that huge scar going down his belly. And that one of the reasons why they took him out, like he was because he was like a physical piece of evidence. He was a geologist, an engineer that was hired as a contractor by the military to expand out Dulce, and he was a physical piece of evidence, and he gave that testimony in like November of '95, and then by January of '96, he was found shot in the head. And there's a bunch of weird stuff surrounding his death too, which we talked about in the roundtable.
Was strangled. I thought Phil Schneider was strangled.
Well, as you said, there's a couple causes of death, but what's weird is like it's almost like a Rasputin thing where like they say it's a suicide, except some accounts say, oh, he was found like shot in the back of the head, military style execution. Others say, oh, he was found with a cord wrapped around his neck. All very suspicious in terms of committing suicide. Typically, you don't strangle yourself. Typically, you don't shoot yourself in the back of the head. And then there's also
a little bit hard.
That says that both happened. So, yeah.
I just want to mention too
go ahead, Paige.
The photos that you see online of Phil Schneider's body, I analyzed those really closely, and in my own opinion, I took quite a few courses in special effects makeup for horror and stuff, and we went over makeup and shading, and I believe those photos are extremely doctored up with some really poor special effects makeup to look at like bruises and stuff. It doesn't look that good. It's definitely, those photos are definitely doctored up. The old way, probably before Photoshop.
All right. So I have a question. Is that Phil Schneider Dulce incident the same one that Mark Richards? Are you familiar with the Mark Richards story, where he went in and rescued all the sex slaves and the women that were being genetically manipulated, and they got out with several thousand, but there were tens of thousands that died. And I get confused that that was at Dulce as well. Are you familiar with that story?
That rescue may have happened at Dulce, but in 1979, what happened with Phil was they were drilling down, building an addition onto Dulce, like expanding, the deep underground military base. So they were drilling down, and they actually drilled down and hit a cavern where some Greys had their own internal base. And you'll find that a lot with a lot of the military will build their bases really, really close to other ET bases that they're working with. And so what happened was they did not, the government already knew where everything was, but they didn't let the engineers and contractors know about the ET stuff. So these guys start drilling holes to build out this base, and they accidentally hit and drilled into a Grey installation. And so all this stinking air came up, and they're like, well, it's hollow down there. We found a cavern. So they sent Phil down in the basket first as the geologist just to check it out, because they're like, we just hit like a pocket. Like, that's not supposed to be here. We found this weird underground cavern. We need to know what's down there before we start drilling and build out this base. So when they sent him down into the basket, he was like horrified when two tall Greys were standing there waiting for him, and actually shot him with a plasma beam weapon. And a Green Beret was with him, and the Green Beret picked him up, threw him back into the basket, hit the button, sent Phil up, and then the Green Beret was killed. And then they sent down another 65, like special ops guys, or I guess Secret Service agents, and they sent down those 65 men, and they didn't come back up. And then that's where Phil's testimony ends, because once he was shot, he didn't, he was pretty out of it at that point. But anyway.
Are you familiar with Dr. Michael Wolf's story? He said he was part of that, and he got hit, and then that's why he developed cancer, and he died relatively young. But he's apparently was involved with making the like the clones, the original model, and then they were cloned. Are you familiar with that story?
No, sorry, I'm not.
Schneider's. That's okay. We won't go into it. We'll save that for another day. Okay, we got a lot to cover here. Who wants to talk now? Just random.
I'll go now.
I think it's Anthony's turn.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just elaborate on what KJ was saying, because when I first came upon awakening, I came upon Duncan O'Finian and his story about being in Vietnam and having the children join hands and create the blast. But I didn't know everything behind it, and little did I know that I was actually involved in it until KJ came along and gave me that information. So
why did they do a blast in Vietnam? You're saying that they did the same thing in Vietnam. They brought the children together.
It was during that time.
Why children, not adults? Yeah. But they made a blast.
Obviously, the children have the psionic abilities. They are more prominent for the psionic abilities. That's why they take the children and train them young and do all that. But basically, I found out that I was involved in that, and then that made me realize that, I did have the abilities, and then I started remembering missions that I've been on where I've actually been using these abilities. And the most recent one is actually, because I'm still active right now, like as a super soldier, I'm still getting taken. There's people, because I don't have a car, I walk everywhere I go. But there's handlers that I have that know where I'm at all times, and they'll show up in my path. I'll be walking along, and there'll be someone from the program along my path, and they'll approach me, and Yeah, it's very evident that they are who they are, but they're not saying exactly who they are, but that's, just to show you that you're still active. And pretty much I every single night for me, I'm remembering missions. When I had my files read to me, I at the time I had been on 4,138, and every night I'm remembering those. And the most significant, the most recent one was where I was actually in London, and we were in a deep underground military base, and we were there rescuing the children in a base that were being used to abused, raped, tortured, just everything that they do to them. But I was on a rescue mission. And I had to use telekinesis and levitation, and I mean it's no joke when you have to do this, because the energy that's involved in it. I mean, people. The thing is, though, is that sometimes doing noble things, killing has to happen. And that's what Kruger is actually involved in. They only kill when it's necessary. These other SSB groups.
Who's Kruger?
Kruger is a group, is a breakaway group that actually broke away from the breakaway groups that were doing all of the negative things to people. But they're now in humanity's best interests. They're working with the good guys, so to say. Mm-hmm. But still, dirty things need to be done. And that's just the way of black operations. And so basically in this mission, we were in a underground military base, and I had to do what I had to do to get these kids out. They were teenagers, and I remember escaping the base, and we were on a coastline, and then I actually had a run-in with a Monarch runner. And I'm actually a runner too. And what runners are they have the ability to do what is called quantum braking. And basically time can slow down. And I've had it's I can go into that, but but basically that they can move so fast that time slows down. And in this mission, I had a run-in with a Monarch runner, and they're dark. They're very dark, and I basically you don't want to run into that. And this runner was obviously dispatched to stop me from rescuing these children. And wow. I had that memory recall just 2 weeks ago. So and that was one memory recall, and then another one, just to give you an example of what a super soldier is involved in, is I was on another planet, because I know through this I've been to 162 planets physically and astrally in my position in the secret space program, and so I was definitely on another planet, and it was a evacuation mission. And I remember there was obviously a force there that was looking to destroy the place, because they were discharging a weapon, an alien weapon that was obviously very powerful. Because I remember seeing it being discharged, and basically it went up into the atmosphere and came down, and basically just took out the whole town. But at the same time, there was an evacuation going on. There were ships getting people out, and it was by a coastline type town, and it was like an advanced civilization, obviously. And I was in a building, obviously getting out people when the blast hit from the weapon, and that's when I had my first memory of a quantum break. Because the blast was coming, and obviously the abilities are enacted whenever you're in danger, and the blast came, and it was just destroying everything. And at that time is when everything around me just stopped. I was in a building, and the blast was coming, and it basically started destroying the windows all around me. But then all of a sudden everything stopped, and there were these like light things around me, and time glints and fractures, and then time stopped, and then I was right next to a obviously a female extraterrestrial being, and I was able to jump on her, and then I woke up from that memory. So
wow.
There's all types of I mean, right now I know I'm on mostly rescue missions and escort missions, but before in my career I was on all combat assassinations and all of that. So I've had a extensive but
Hey,
I'm doing the
Anthony.
escort. Yeah.
You should mention the 9/11 Building 7, because most people think that the significance of that building collapsing was just because there was gold in the basement.
Yeah.
And it ties into the secret space program as well.
Yeah.
And then when you're done with that, I want to know if anybody knows about the missile that was coming to Maui this year. Or
Oh God,
Hawaii,
I can get into
January.
that too. I'll just hit both
9/11
those points.
Building 7. Okay, take those points.
I'll hit both
Thank
those
you.
points right now.
Okay.
Because there was more going on than what people see with the 9/11 thing. There was obviously a secret space program involvement, and there were super soldiers there too. And basically with Building 7 collapsing, I mean, that was a super soldier basically using telekinesis, and just blowing apart the building, because there were files in that building, basically like the X-Files, which are the MyLab files, that are being hidden. And there was gold too, but and it was all about stopping the Saint Germain Trust and the National Economic Security Reformation Act. But there was a lot of super soldier involvement there. They sent in super soldiers to get the files, to retrieve things. But part of the reason why the building collapsed was because super soldiers were there using their abilities. So and then also as well.
So you're saying that was an accident? They didn't intend to blow it up?
Yeah, no, there was definitely something going. There was a fight going on in there. There was a fight going on between super soldiers, and they had to use abilities which blew shit up.
So it's just like Marvel comics, right? The Marvel movies.
Yes, it's exactly.
Everything's blowing up, and it's like.
Yeah, it's
so we have
for
to
real.
come up with a cover story.
Well, if there's files, if there's MyLab files in there and files on, what's going on, then there's groups that want to retrieve those files, and then there's groups that don't ever want them to be retrieved, which is where you get your war going on,
So they were using the 9/11 Twin Towers incident as a distraction to go in and get the files, but they blew it up during the fight. And so the cover story got to be included with 911, but they were two different. Well, they were kind of related because they were using 911 to distract people to the Twin Towers, right? Am I getting that?
Yeah, there's a lot to it, but I won't get too into it. But basically, the planes were holographic, and that was the technology that they had to use. So it was an inside job. The holographic planes are actually a technology that the TR-3 has. They can actually, and you can see this because the chemtrails, this is Operation Indigo Skyfold. The chemtrails, you see a plane spraying the chemtrails, right? But that's actually not a plane. It's a black triangle that's cloaked as a plane. And they use the same technology. Yeah, they use the same technology to make it seem like planes were flying into the buildings. But really, there was a TR-3 that was cloaked that produced a hologram that made it that made it look like there was planes flying into the building. And I knew that
was a lie the moment I woke up, because I worked on Johnson Atoll, and we used to clock the whatever the planes were. They would launch from Honolulu all the way to Johnson Atoll, which was 800 miles southwest of the Hawaiian Islands, and they were doing mock battles, mock war in case somebody would invade the island. And their cover story back then was because we're disposing of chemical weapons, but now I know that was because that was an ET base, and so they had the civilian front with the military combined, to cover this whole base that was going on there. So now it makes sense, a lot of sense. But I knew it only takes 8 minutes to go 800 miles. So when they said it took a half an hour, and it's like to respond, I thought, this whole story's bullshit. I knew the first within the first 10 minutes, I knew the whole thing was bullshit. Okay, so
sorry, and by the way, Janet, I just wanted to say something. You remember Bill Tompkins because you met him.
Oh yes.
Back in the 50s and 60s, he had those photos of the Draconin tankers that were spraying things, like basically chemtrails, an early version of chemtrails, to keep people asleep, and also that way visually they couldn't actually see things properly in the sky. So like literally you can have all these craft flying overhead uncloaked, and these Draconin tankers, because you're breathing in this chemical, you literally just can't see it. And it probably had to do with like poisoning the pineal gland. But anyway, what Anthony was saying there, that totally makes sense, because Solda Warden and other factions, they've since taken things over, and they're still in league with the Draco, but they now, because of the human level secret space program, the human level secret space program, we're like the middlemen now, and we're doing a lot of the dirty work or the jobs of maintaining this whole like prison planet. So the TR3s that are spraying, they have holographic technology. They look like planes, but it's what they're doing is they're actually just mimicking or copying the same job that the Draconin tankers used to do, but now that has been since outsourced to the humans who have the black TR3s and other versions of the TR3 that are spraying. Because before the humans had like our own secret space program, it was actually the Draco and their mind control programs. They've been spraying for thousands of years. It's just recently in the 50s and 60s that we since kind of launched into space, and we're in league with them, and we kind of got some of we got like a chore list, okay? If that makes sense. Like the Draco said, okay, well, if you're going to have your own crap, it's your job to spray, right?
Right. See, when I saw Bill Tompkins at the MUFON conference in Vegas last July, that was like 2 weeks before he died, and I think that they took him out. He was so excited. He was like a kid in a candy store. But he kept saying, he says, "You've got to get exactly what we're talking about, the spraying." He said, "It's a Draco's." He wasn't making that much sense. But what you're saying, to me, makes a lot of sense. But I think we still have to unpack that a little bit more. And we're running out of time. We got just a few more minutes. Wow. So, but he kept talking to me because and this is something we have to cover, is that I have the psychic abilities. He could read my mind, I could read his mind, and he was blown away because he hadn't had that since the girls, the blonde real girls, right, that were in the project. Anyway, that's another piece of this puzzle is Tompkins, and he's gone, and they've got all this information. I know there's at least 2 books they're trying to get out, and they were supposed to have them out, within 6 months of that last one. So who's sitting on that now? And how are we going to get that piece of the puzzle out to the public? So, okay.
Right. Maybe during the last
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, geez, I thought we had 10 more minutes.
Okay. Well, according to my clock, but it could be wrong. May I have
2?
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Okay, we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
We can do this again. We'll talk about it as soon as we hang up. But go ahead. Wrap it up, guys.
No, all right. I'll just talk about real quick. With the missile and Honolulu and stuff.
Oh, yes.
That was all real. That was all real. That all happened. And actually, from what I know, I actually think me and Kevin had an involvement in that, because he had a memory recall of a mission where he had recalled me in it, and I had recalled him. And it was around that time. Actually, it was a little before, so I think time travel was involved.
It was in December, actually. This is what's weird about it is I messaged Anthony when I was still on Facebook. I had this recall of tracking the submarine, and I didn't. In the recall, it was all muted. I couldn't remember any audio, but I knew Anthony was in the TR3 with me, and we were tracking a submarine. and using remote viewing. And then so I asked him about it. And what's weird is the missile that incident didn't happen until January, if I remember correctly.
January 13th, 2018. And I was here, and I got the alarm, and it's like, shit, honey, we got 15 minutes to live. It was very surreal. But go ahead. So you're saying it was a sub. It apparently came from above. That's what Michael Sala and others have tracked down. That something came from above. So I thought it was somebody in the secret space program.
It was a rogue CIA submarine. In October that had to do.
We will continue this discussion in the next show, which we're going to schedule. Thank you for listening today. Much love and blessings and aloha. Stay on, guys. Stay on.
Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.